In the early years of Huaxia, the atmosphere of the god realm changed dramatically, and the sacred tree grew 10,000 feet long, with roots like clouds hanging from the sky, penetrating deep into the heart of Pangu. The heart of Pangu gathered the surrounding earth and rocks, and gradually expanded to form a mountain suspended in the sky, which is called Shu Mountain. Since then, Mount Shu has become a holy place for cultivating immortals, where immortals from all walks of life gather. After thousands of years, Mount Shu officially established its sect and became a new great sect of cultivating immortals. The top of Shashan Mountain is shrouded in clouds and mists, and the peak reaches straight into the sky, and the top of the clouds and mists is a clear sky, like a fairyland. In this fairyland, a young man in black with an indifferent expression was holding a long sword and stood opposite an old man in white. The two of them stayed quietly above the clouds, and the picture was like a freeze frame. The long sword in the hands of the young man in black swirls with a tyrannical aura, while the old man in white stands motionless like a 10,000-year-old pine. The two long swords behind his back, one blue and one purple, complement each other. The young man's name is Ling Feng, and he is an unworldly master who has appeared in the practice world in recent years. A golden long sword sweeps across the entire practice world. The sword is as fast as lightning. Once he strikes, blood will seal his throat. No one knows his origin. No one knows about his master's lineage. Everything about him seems to be a mystery. But after a few years, he has become a golden flash that everyone fears in the practice world, and some people even call him the #1 sword fairy. The young man's face was stern, like a knife and an axe, and his two eyebrows were like sharp swords that went straight into the temples. If this was placed in the world, he would definitely be a handsome man who fascinated countless young people. The old man in white clothes has kind eyebrows and kind eyes. His eyes are extremely energetic, and the sparse beard on his chin is neatly groomed. Standing there, he looks like an ordinary old man wandering on the street. But no one in the practice world thinks that this old man is ordinary. The head of Shashan, the #1 sect in the practice world, is recognized as the strongest sword immortal in the whole world. He is close to the peak of his cultivation. It is said that he is on the verge of becoming a fairy and may become the first sword immortal in more than 100 years. A practitioner who has stepped into the realm of a quasi-immortal. The old man carefully looked at the young man opposite. Suddenly his eyes were like lightning, and his eyes were as sharp as flying swords. Almost at the same time, the rope began to swing. Hoo. Ling Feng, at such a young age, your cultivation is not weaker than that of this old man. You are the first genius in 100 years. Even an old man has to admire your fellow cultivation, but in the way of swordsmanship, your talent is beyond the reach of old people. Unfortunately, you killed my two apprentices, so that no one will die for the old man. This revenge has to be avenged. Even if killing you causes a new star to fall, the old man will have to do it harshly. I blame you for being too ruthless. The old man spoke out coldly. The murderous intent in his heart had already moved. Facing the fierce murderous aura on the old man, a mocking smile appeared on the corner of Ling Feng's mouth. His black robe fluttered in the wind, and he said in a flat tone, "Those two disciples of yours tried to take my magic weapon, the nine-dragon cauldron, and they died because of my poor cultivation under the sword. They deserve it." Okay, good one's cultivation is not good. Then this old man will meet you personally, and see if you can extinguish my purple and green twin lights with a touch of golden light. The old man in white shot 2 rays of light from his eyes, and the green lights on his back had been unsheathed in an instant. There was only a crisp sound in the air. The green light had already arrived in front of Ling Feng, and the golden long sword under Ling Feng's feet arrived at the same time. The 2 flying swords turned into sword lights. 1 golden and 1 green immediately merged into one place, and in an instant, a round of fierce collision has begun. The white-clothed old man held the sword formula with one hand, muttering words. A milky white shield of true essence emerged from his body, and with a roar, the purple flying sword behind him was held in his hand, and his whole body instantly turned into a huge purple flying sword. The sword stabbed towards Ling Feng. The white-clothed old man's purple and green double swords are one of his unique skills. Compared with other sword repairers, his biggest advantage is that he can control 2 swords at the same time. The purple sword has already fought with Ling Feng's flying sword, and now, the old man personally controlled the green sword to attack again. Seeing the old man's attack, even though he had no weapon in his hand at the moment, Ling Feng was still calm. 9-dragon cauldron, all the true energy in his body condensed, Ling Feng shouted, and a 3-meter-high black cauldron floated up behind him. The 2 rays of light, one blue and one blue, intersected in an instant, and there was a bang in the sky. The air waves caused by the collision of energy blew away all the tumbling clouds, and the golden sun shone down in an instant. After a few breaths, the breeze swayed, and the 2 of them came to a stillness. The surrounding area returned to calm again. Looking at it, the young man's black robe was already mottled, covered with sword marks, and the hairband that bound the bun was also swept away by the sword energy, and his long black hair fell down his shoulders, and the golden long sword flew back. The golden light on the sword has dimmed a lot, trembling slightly like the hand bones of a dying person. There was a sword mark on Ling Feng's left cheek, and the big black cauldron stood in front of him, and the tripod's body was also covered with dense sword marks. After this collision, it was impossible to see how many swords the old man in white had made. The delicate crown of the old man in white was also picked up by Ling Feng, and his gray hair fell down, making the old face look extremely embarrassed. The white robe was also mottled and covered with scars. The 9-dragon cauldron integrates offense and defense, and the body of the tripod is protected by the 9 dragons. During the battle, the 9 dragons come out together. Whether attacking or defending, they are equally powerful. Standing there quietly, a purple flying sword surrounded the old man in white, and the cyan flying sword in his hand shone like lightning. What a golden lightning! What a nine-dragon cauldron! No wonder no one has been able to break your golden flesh in the past few years. With a quick sword and a nine-dragon cauldron, how many people can block you? But it's a pity. But I can't help you. Bai, the old man said in a cold voice. The two flying swords vibrated at the same time. There was only a crisp crack sound, and the blue and purple light fell off one after another. The two flying swords actually began to entangle with each other, and gradually merged together, turning into a simple sword, the long sword. The spirit power of the nine-dragon cauldron is exhausted, and your own flying sword doesn't have enough skill to control it now. How can you block me now? Your cultivation base has improved so fast over the years. I'm afraid you have forgotten it. Sword repair. Sword repair. My own swordsmanship is also the most important thing to learn. My swordsmanship is unparalleled in the world, and I have the purple and green sword in my hand. How can you beat me? The old man in white seemed to be sure of winning. His face was full of arrogance, and he laughed loudly, accompanied by laughter. The old man's feet moved quickly, bringing up a trace of afterimages. The seeking Excalibur in his hand was like a poisonous snake, and it went straight to Ling Feng's throat. Darkened realm. Seeing the fierce attack of the old man in white, Ling Feng remained completely calm. The light of the golden flying sword in his hand receded. Although it was simple, it also had an unspeakable mystery. With a slight smile on the corner of his mouth, Ling Feng said calmly, "In this world, not only your purple and blue swords are magic weapons, and do you think that only you are the master of swordsmanship?" Lonely smoke in the desert, came the majestic singing, and Ling Feng's aura instantly became extremely vast and mighty. The ancient flying sword that had faded out of light suddenly stuck out in his hand, and he ignored the sword attacked by the old man in white at all. But he directly countered and went back, with awe-inspiring sword aura, and the attack came first. It turned out to be the desert divine sword art. It turned out to be the ancient sword Lanai. Feeling the soaring sword intent, the white-clothed old man finally panicked. Ling Feng's sword energy had already passed through his protection and went straight to his heart. Excalibur protects the body. At the critical moment, the old man in white forcefully withdrew the purple-green divine sword that had been sent out, guarding his whole body, and forcibly blocked Ling Feng's move. Suffering this heavy blow, the seeking Excalibur wailed, and the two swords that had been merged into one immediately separated, and the aura above had completely dimmed, like ordinary iron. The great desert sword art. I never thought I would be lucky enough to see the desert divine sword art once in my life, which has been lost for 500 years. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. His hands were cracked, and he had completely lost the ability to fight. Ling Feng, who was standing with a sword in his hand, laughed wildly. He knew that 500 years ago, there were only two forms of the invincible desert god sword art. The first form was the desert Gaianzi that swallowed thousands of miles like a tiger, and the second form was the fabled invincible, the unavoidable long river sets in the sun. Once the long river sets and the sun rises, it can almost cover the sky and the earth, covering all living beings. No matter what, he couldn't avoid this second move. It's ridiculous that I still want to compete with you in swordsmanship, to be able to use this desert god sword art to such a level. The level of swordsmanship may have already surpassed mine. Looking at Ling Feng, the old man showed a mad look on his face. Ling Feng, your cultivation has reached such a level, almost against the sky. I regret that I should have allowed my disciples to rob you of your treasures. Now, as the head of Shashan, I can't keep you as a disaster and ruin my century-old foundation of Shashan. While speaking, layers of red light had already floated on the old man's body. Shu Mountain's unique skill in protecting the mountain, Tianggang sword formation. Ling Feng had already heard the name of this sword formation. After the Tianggang sword formation was activated, there was only one style, even less than his own desert god sword art. 10,000 swords reincarnation extinct. The only stance of the Tianggang sword formation is also the strongest stance of the sword in the world according to legend. If one can comprehend and break through the esoteric meaning of this style, the sword cultivator will definitely be able to reach the supreme state of sword cultivator possessed by the heavenly sword, and use the body as a sword to break through the sky and soar. In fact, with Ling Feng's strength, if he is unwilling to make a move, no one will be able to find him. It can be said that Ling Feng came this time to experience the power of the Tianggang sword formation, in order to experience the highest meaning of the sword. Boom, boom, boom. As the white-clothed old man activated the Tianggang sword formation, bursts of dark clouds immediately gathered and condensed towards the peak of Shashan Mountain, covering the entire sky. Strains of palpitating forces are constantly gathering together, as if they can directly attack people's souls. Soul. The highest meaning of candle is to attack the opponent's soul. Feeling the power of the Tianggang sword array, Ling Feng silently realized, yes, soul. I always thought that the sword is the person, and the person is the sword. It is the highest state. After that, there should be nothing to improve. Now, this problem that bothers me can finally be solved. What is more advanced than the fusion of human and sword is to have a sword spirit. Human soul turning into a sword is the strongest state. I figured it out. I finally figured it out, laughing maniacally. Although the danger was approaching, Ling Feng had completely walked out of life and death, and experienced a new realm. Ling Feng slowly closed his eyes. He felt that death was approaching him step by step. He didn't have the slightest thought of regret. If he was allowed to live again, he would still choose to experience the strongest sword in the legend of Shashan. Death is just another kind of new life. Now that he has stepped into practice, he is not afraid of life and death. A smile appeared on the corner of Ling Feng's face, which was the first time in several years that he smiled so sincerely. The pain in his body seemed to follow suit, going far away, a scene of fairy mountain Kagura gradually emerged in front of my eyes. Ling Feng, go to hell. The sword formation had been fully activated, and the old man in white was floating in midair, laughing wildly. At this moment, he can already imagine the glory of the future. If Ling Feng dies, his 9-dragon cauldron will definitely fall down. If he can control the 9-dragon cauldron and refine the divine elixir, then he will definitely be able to ascend to the immortal class in the future. 9-dragon cauldron. It's not for someone like you. Although his body was almost destroyed, Ling Feng was in a different realm at this moment, and wanting to kill the old man in white was like blowing ashes. What are you talking about? How dare you be arrogant when you are about to die? After hearing Ling Feng's words, the old man in white immediately glared at Ling Feng. But his glance became the last picture he saw in this world. I only felt a throbbing in my soul, and Ling Feng just looked at him calmly. But it seemed that a real sword shot out from Ling Feng's eyes, pierced through the space, and split his soul. Until he stopped breathing, the old man in white didn't know how he died. Could it be that one can kill with just one look? How would he know that the current Ling Feng has broken through the highest level of swordsmanship? In this life, if you can enter this realm, you will die without regret. But this 9-dragon cauldron cannot be left behind. Otherwise, the world will be in chaos in the future. In this world, the aura of cultivating immortals has become thinner and thinner. There is no need to exist. Thinking of this, Ling Feng gathered his last strength and detonated the 9-dragon cauldron. Rumble. In the explosion that changed the color of the world, the entire Shu Mountain was razed to the ground in this explosion.